What's that? Yeah, that's what Nikki told me. She said you connected her with Sue. Because I don't know. I know they're still looking for places, and I think they're getting kicked out of their current apartment too. So they need to do it quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it might work. I mean, I would imagine Susan, most of her friends are like Susan in condos. Kind of is what they're looking for, but maybe.
No, no, Sue is elevated house.
I did know that. I did know
And,
that.
what she wants. I listen very carefully. Nikki and Russell's house.
Yeah.
And so this was
last week when we chanted that from the Yovel Torah, really wasn't good lettering. The Jubilee Torah. It wasn't.
Difficult letter.
No, this one is good. We use the best one.
You start using a different one. So.
How does it start?
Vayomer Shem. Vayomer Shem El Moshe Lemor. That doesn't really help. No, so it had Sav is the first word after the Lemor. That's Daber.
I got it.
Lots of Mizbeachs in it, if that helps.
Right here.
So this here
Yep.
it is right there. There we go. Look at this. This is so cool.
We got a whole control panel up here.
Okay. There you go.
Good morning, Jane.
I love it. Want to go around this way? I got the right spot. I don't want to lift it. Okay. Look at this. Just where I took the case off, I have the rubber ball in there and look, the mark on the floor between the black rubber. Better up to the statue. She stayed in Walker? Yeah. Well, she'll probably pick up her skirt pretty fast, yeah. But yeah, she's like, I guess she's got some hopeful. It's tough. Yeah, so it's good that you say it yourself. You need to get through here, right? Careful. There's wires. That's a trip down the stairs. I tell him when we go to
And I have people who are willing to give up space too.
It was just a backpack, you know, she had to finish, she went first to Romania, then she had to go to Istanbul.
Yes,
And
Before you make it beautiful, I will thank you, and then I will thank you. And Ada is gonna be there on Tuesday? Okay. So I will be there Tuesday.
Oh, good.
This is gorgeous.
Thank you.
You're always so put together.
Of course. You should see what I wear at home.
No, probably shouldn't. I probably shouldn't.
Do you have any questions for me?
I'm just like my dad.
I mean, I get resin and all that stuff, but Mama mia.
That's, well, not now, okay? I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So did you open
Why
any
do, I
closets?
understand why some people say no pain
That's funny.
That's really funny. I'm like, is it?
Ashkenazi is
I mean,
supportive.
make up your mind. You know what I mean?
No, I can't make up my mind because I grew up in the era.
I thought it was generational, not.
It's basically the creation of the state of Israel that adopted Sephardic language. But I grew up with the so to go is like I used to say sukkahs.
Now,
And Simchas Torah.
if you are a wine drinker and you like
But that's what it is.
And Sukkot
Oh, Sukkot.
and Simchat Torah.
Simchat Torah. Well, one is Hebrew, and one is.
One is Hebrew, one is ancient. It's all good.
Yeah. So, but there are people that use both. Yeah, they mix it up. And then not only that, they even get to the same word and they say different words anyway.
In one well, some
Yeah. I listened to the Aliyah. Yeah. The next time. I know. It's the same letter. And it's a. What's the name of the letter? Tuf, right? That's been a long time.
And it used to be that when it had a dot in it, it was t, and when it didn't have a dot in it, it was a little bit more of a sa. And now it's t all the time.
Except if you're a certain age and you weren't sa. I always thought it was a backwards generation.
That's kind of
Not
cool
regional.
though, because then you can kind of see the different strata. Oh yeah. Of the language and the development. We used to have, I remember we had our president, Franklin, like Hlini Esoblin.
Boker Tov, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Let's begin Shabbat as we do each and every week. Little Matovu, page 160 in your prayer books. If you're joining us virtually, you can always find a link to our live prayer book. We'll post that in the chat for you. Or just go to jcoh.org/live for all of our online resources. A prayer for our bodies, 162. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yetzar et ha'adam b'chokhmah, uvravo nekavim nekavim, chalulim chalulim. Galui v'yadua lifnei chisech vodecha, she'im yepatech echad mehem, o yisatem echad mehem, אי אפשר להתקיים ולעמוד לפניך. Baruch atah Adonai, rofech כל בשר ומפליא לעשות. Blessed are you, our God, who heals our bodies with wonder. 163, Elohai Neshama. Our prayers for daily miracles, recognizing that each and every day it's our responsibility to find blessing in the little things in life. You don't have to search really deeply and think too contemplatively in order to find blessing in your life. It should be the things at the surface. Just have to refocus your eyes a little bit to be able to see them as blessing. Take a look at some of the translations of Nisim B'chol Yom as we chant them aloud. And you'll see that these are not major wonders, but the tiny things that go unnoticed. 164.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani b'tzelem Elohim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shelo asani nokri.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shelo asani aved.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asali kol tzorki.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. You open eyes that cannot see.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumi.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. You free those who are bound.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufi.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaven.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael bigvura.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oteh Yisrael b'tifarah.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. You give strength to the tired.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hama'avir she'ena me'ena yutnuma me'avabai. Blessed are you, our living God, sovereign of the universe. You take away sleep from my eyes and slumber from my eyelids.
Amen. Where to next, Cantor?
How about Elu Devarim a cappella?
165.
169. Elu Devarim she'adam ochel perotehem ba'olam hazeh והקרן קיימת לו לעולם הבא ואלו הן.
Let's read together in the English. These are the things whose interest we enjoy in this world, while the capital remains for us in the world to come. This is what they are. Respecting one's father and mother, acts of generosity and love, coming early to the house of study morning and evening, giving hospitality to strangers, visiting the sick, assisting the bride, escorting the dead, engaging with prayer, making peace between people, and the study of Torah leads to them all.
Esa Einai, page 179. Esa Einai el Haim, me'ayin yavo Ezri. Esa Einai el Haim, me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri, me'im Adonai yoseh shamayim ba'aretz. Ezri, me'im Adonai yoseh shamayim ba'aretz. Esa Einai el Haim, me'ayin yavo Ezri. Esa Einai el Haim, me'ayin yavo Ezri.
203.
שוכנה דמרום וקדוש בו וכתוב רננו צדיקים באדוני לישרים נבע תהילה בפי שרים תתרומם ובדברי צדיקים תתברך ובלשון חסידים תתקדש ובקרב קדושים תתהלל יתגדל ויתקדש מרבה
אמן.
ביום הדברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ובמכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל ועגלה ובזמן קריב אמן. יהי שמרה ומבורך, לעולם ולעולמי עולמי יתברך. יתברך וישתבח באב תרומה ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה, שמי בקדושה בריחו, לעילה מן כל בחטא ושירת תשבחתה ונחמתה, דעה מירון ועולמה, ואמרו אמן.
We'll invite you to rise if you are able. Our call to worship is on 207.
Lai, 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 lai,
You can be seated. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Good to see everybody's faces, both those joining us virtually and those joining us in person. And as is our custom, or as it has become, we like to wish Shabbat Shalom to each and every person who is joining us by name. So let me start out with those joining us here in the sanctuary. Let me wish a Shabbat Shalom to Michael and Joel and to Stephen. Shabbat Shalom to Tony, Fred, and Jeffrey. Shabbat Shalom to Sandy and Paulette, to Peter and to Jane, and of course to our cantor. Let's go now to the online list. Cantor, do you want to take some?
Sure. Start with you. Shabbat Shalom to the rabbi, and Shabbat Shalom to Al and Sheila Bialik, and to Ben, and to Carol Wenig, and Debbie, and Dorothy, and Fred, and to Gary, and Glenn Corwin, and Harry Catch, who it looks like he's not at home right now, and to Holly, Arlene Altman, Ben Weider and Esther, Jan and Jerry, and the Kevlises, and Juliet Pfeffer, and Kathy. You want to go on, Rabbi?
Sure. Shabbat Shalom to Michael and to Bernie. Shabbat Shalom to Neil. That is the list for now, and preemptively to anyone who might join us in the near-distant future, in case they don't get it, please make sure that you get to wish them a Shabbat Shalom. You can do that in the chat, of course, if you're joining us virtually, or if someone walks in the sanctuary, please make sure. Let's be that warm and welcoming community that we profess to be. It's Shabbat. I like to say that Shabbat is our time where we take a step away from the things that cause us stress, anxiety, and angst in the world, of which there is so much these days. It is the world being in such a perilous state on so many different fronts. You can't escape all that is going on that causes worry in the world, but maybe you can escape it just for a day. Maybe you can shut off the news, shut off your phone even, and focus on the things that are truly important. That is friends, family, community, and sacred time. That's what I believe that we are all doing here this morning. We get the blessing of being able to turn the world off and turn on a very myopic view of the holy things in the world that give us meaning and give us purpose. We learn Torah. What better way to occupy our time? Of course, we can't just immerse ourselves in Torah completely and not step into the modern world around us, but one day that we get to actually delve into the depths of Torah, delve into the depths of prayer and spirituality, that I think is worthy of our time this morning. Just a reminder for those joining us in person, please make sure to silence your devices that might beep or buzz, your cell phones and your smartphones. And if you're joining us virtually, friendly reminder, I can't police this, but you might have a window open that's a Facebook browser or an Amazon browser or Twitter, whatever it might be. It's a good time to shut down that browser and just focus on the Zoom screen as we are here together just for a short time this morning. To really get into that Shabbat spirit, I'm going to invite you to do as we do each and every week and close your eyes for a moment if you're comfortable doing so. And let's take a few deep Shabbos breaths. Breathe in and release. Breathe in that quiet and calm. And as you exhale, release whatever thoughts, whatever emotions you'd like to just get rid of, even but for a day. Breathe in the sacred question that God calls out to Adam, Ayeka, where are you? And as you exhale, the correct response to a sacred calling, Hineni, here I am. Take a few more deep breaths on your own. You don't have to think about anything. Just your breath, in and out. The last line of Psalm 150, Kol haneshama hallelujah, hallelujah. Let every breath that we take be one that praises God's name. When you're ready, come back to the room around you. Open your eyes. And let's look outwardly now to the blessings of creation as we come to Yotzer, page 207. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Yotzer or uvarei choshech, oseh shalom uvarei et hakol. Hakol yoducha ve'hakol yishabchucha, ve'hakol yomru ein kadosh kadonai. Hame'ir lam kulo u'yoshvav, uftuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit. Ma'arabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, ala ha'aretz kinyanecha. Hamelech ha'maromam levado me'az, Shabbat v'mefo'ar v'mitnaseh mimot olam. 209.
Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot.
210. Ahava rabba ahavtanu Adonai Eloheinu chemla gedola v'terach chamalta aleinu. Avinu malkeinu ba'avor shimcha hagadol uba'avor avotenu shabatchu b'cha. V'talamdem chukei chaim la'asot ritzoncha b'lavev shalem. Kain tichonenu.
Ha'ereneinu b'to'atecha v'dabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha ve'yached livareinu le'ahava u'liyira et shemecha למען לא נבוש ולא ניכלם כי אל פועל ישועות אתה ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון וקרבתנו מלכנו לשמך הגדול באהבה להודות לך ולייחדך ולאהבה את שמך ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה לעולם ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
2:16.
ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם, ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף בטיל תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית, וריתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
מי כמוך 2:18.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. לילה לשמך על שפת הים יחד כולם, הודו והמליכו ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. לילה צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, גואלנו, אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'Elohei imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor והנורא, עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, קונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בוגד שרה, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב והושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, לי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמנת לחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאיך, וכרזל זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו, לעומתם ברוך יונינו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, ממקומך מלכנו, תופיע ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך, ודברי קודשך כתוב לאמור, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך Baruch ata
Baruch Baruch
Adonai
Shemo.
Ha'el HaKadosh.
We continue independently, either using the words on the page through 234 or using this time to turn inwardly to the prayers of our hearts.
Shalom bimromav. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. ועל כל העולם ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. ואמרו אמן. יהי
May the one who makes peace on high bring peace down to all of us. Bring peace to Israel. And bring peace to all of the world. We say together, memory is a funny thing in the Jewish tradition, and that is we have specific rituals that cause us to remember events of the past that we weren't actually present for. It's a very unique kind of memory, you might say, something that's described with the Hebrew word zichirah, which means, or often is translated as a remembrance. Remembering moments that happened once upon a time, though they play out all the time through our history. Sinai and the experience of standing at the foot of Sinai is one such moment. And we do a little bit of so you'd call it a tableau, is that the right word? Where you recreate something through ritual and through staging it. Is that the right word? Yeah. The Torah service is just that. That is, everyone is standing, and if you took my class on the prayers of Shabbat, the reason why we stand for the Torah service is because it says in the Torah that we were standing at the foot of Sinai, and therefore when we recreate the ritual, we've got to be standing as well. It's as if we were actually there taking part in the experience. All the rituals, from the pomp and circumstance to the ascending of the mountain, are all part of the choreography of recreating this sacred moment in our history. So as I invite you to rise if you are able and turn to 236, let's remember together.
Ein kamocha va'Elohim Adonai, v'yein kimvasecha, malchutcha malchut kol olamim, u'memshaltecha b'chol dor vador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai oz le'amo yitin. ויהי בנשוא הארון, ויאמר משה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים. 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 ברוך שנתן תורה לעמו, תורה לעמו ישראל. ברוך שנתן תורה לעמו ישראל מקדושתו. כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים. כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד אלוהינו, גדול אדוננו, קדוש שמו, גדול אדוני איתי, ונרום שמו יחדיו. לך אדוני הגדולה והגבורה והתפארת והנצח וההוד. כי כל בשמיים ובארץ, כי כל בשמיים ובארץ, לך אדוני הממלכה והמתנשא לכל לראש.
You can be seated. Our Torah portion this week chronicles some of the things in our history which Jews like to somehow hide. That is, rituals and commandments that no longer are practiced. The Torah portion is called Tzav, which means command, as God commands Moses to command Aaron and a number of rituals. This word Tzav is related to the word mitzvah, that is a commandment, though if you are a Yiddish speaker, I'm told that the word mitzvah and mitzvah are different words. Did you know that? A mitzvah is a commandment, right? We know that, like you become a bar or bat mitzvah. We'll speak about that in a little bit. But a mitzvah in Yiddish, I'm told, is just a good deed.
I'm calling that one out.
I'm told. I'm pretty sure my professor, Dr. Borowitz, taught me that one. So
Oh, wait, I don't argue
if
with
he
Dr.
said it, it's probably
Borowitz.
true. If he said it, it's probably true. And I can't confirm, because again, you know, everyone asks me, Rabbi, do you speak Yiddish? And the answer is, of course not. Why would I speak Yiddish? I speak Hebrew. But so some Yiddish speaker out there is going to have to help me out with that one. Let's just say a lot of the commandments and a lot of the sacrifices that we are going to learn about today are no longer practiced. Interesting note, though, we have different kinds of sacrifices. I discussed a little bit of the shlamim sacrifice, the wholehearted offering, as I translated it last week. We have the olah, again, which is mentioned. The whole sacrifice is the chatat, sin offering. And we also have a new offering in this week's Torah portion called the Todah offering, which means the thanks, or the Thanksgiving offering. An interesting note is that the rabbis are going to comment that when the sacrificial system is null and void, that is when the Messiah comes and there's no need ever for a sacrificial system, or even when our forms of prayer are annulled, there will always be one kind of sacrifice and one kind of form of worship that shall never be annulled, and that is the Todah sacrifice, or the Todah offering. The idea is that even in perfect times, even when our praise is no longer required, gratitude will be an eternal covenant or an eternal commandment for each and every one of us. We'll learn more about that in Torah study today, but let's turn to our Parsha, Parshat Zav, and I'm going to invite up our Baal Kriya, our Torah reader this morning, Fred Becker. I also mentioned we discussed the idea of bar and bat mitzvah. This morning we're actually going to discuss bat mitzvah a little bit more because it is the centennial anniversary of the bat mitzvah, March 18th, 1922, the first bat mitzvah. Anyone know who it was? Judith Kaplan, the daughter of Mordechai Kaplan. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about that. But to honor this big, monumental moment in the history of Judaism, let's call up someone who has received an adult bat mitzvah. Any receivers of an adult bat mitzvah, either in our virtual community or our in-person community? Nobody? Huh. That was a shocker.
Well, let me say to all of these women who may or not have yet become a bat mitzvah, that door never closes. You know my number.
Let's try this one. If you've received or become a bat mitzvah and had a bat mitzvah ceremony at any point in your life, we'd love for you to take the first aliyah. Any banot mitzvah out there? I see someone typed something in the chat.
So I was talking to the rabbi earlier. I had a bat mitzvah, but I was not permitted to read from Torah. It was a Friday night service, and I didn't get to read Torah until I entered into the seminary. So anyone who would have had a bat mitzvah would have to have been either in the Reform movement or younger than I am.
By the way, just as an aside, Holly looked up in the Yiddish-English dictionary, and I was in fact correct.
Wow.
That a mitzvah is a good deed, spelled
Thanks
with
for
2
throwing me
yuds.
under the bus, Holly.
No, thanks for correcting or making sure that keeping me honest in terms of what I say. Do we have any bat mitzvah who wants to take an aliyah out of the Torah? Wow.
Well, how about if all of the women present stand up where they are and do the first aliyah from their seats so we don't have to gather you all around?
Sounds good to me.
Rivlin, you want to come over here and lead everybody? Would you mind? Over
Because
to
we need someone mic'd.
We need somebody who will have a mic on.
Fred, come on over here.
Baruch hu Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. Sav et Aharon v'et banav lemor. Zot haTorah haolah. Hi haolah. Al mekudei al hamizbeach. Kol halayla ad beboker v'yesh hamizbeach. Tukad bo b'labesh hakohen mido bad u'michnasei bad v'yilbesh el basaro v'hirim et hadeshen asher teochel ha'esh et ha'olam al hamizbeach v'samu etzel hamizbeach.
Mr. Koach, Fred.
I like that one.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam atah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
I would like to call the women who are on our virtual to please as well stand up for the second Aliyah. Carol Wenig, would you be kind enough to represent everyone in that Aliyah? We're going to mute Carol Wenig. Unmute. Can we unmute Carol Wenig?
There we go.
No, she's still muted.
Carol, you got to unmute.
There you go, whenever you're ready. Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Amen.
ופשט את בגדיו, לבש בגדים אחרים, וחוצי את חדשן אל מחוץ למחנה, אל מקום טהור, והאש את המזבח תוקד בו, לא תכבה, ובער עליך הכהן עצים בבוקר, ואורך אליך, הקטיר עליך הלב השלמים אש תמיד תוקף אל המזבח לא תכבה.
Amen. And I am looking to see if there's anybody in our virtual or present congregation who will be rising to say Kaddish for a loved one who would like to take that third Aliyah for our mourners. Please.
Come on up here. Right here.
Baruch hu es Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher baruch rabonu mikol ha'amim. V'nosan lanu es Torato. Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. וזאת התורה ממך וממכם הקרב אותה בני אחרון לפני אדוני אל פני המזבח וחירי ממנו בנקצו מצלע המנוחם ומשמנה ואת כל הלבנה אשר המנוחה הקטיר המזבח רוח ונר כוח אזכרת לאדוני והנוצרות ממנו יכלו אחרון ובניו מצות תאכל במקום קדוש בחוצר אוכל מועד יכלו
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher nosan lanu toras emes. V'chayei olam nata b'sochenu. Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
We'll fix it. With the Torah still before us, we recite the Mishaberach prayer, the prayer for healing. If you are in our virtual congregation and would like to type a name for healing, please do so, and the rabbi will call them out. And if you are in our congregation here at the Jewish Center in person, we will give you that opportunity to call them out yourselves. Avotenu mekor
those of you wishing to recite a name for healing, we'll invite you to rise and share those names now.
Gershon.
Let me add the names on our list here as well in the chat. Sure. Thank you. Roger Kitsis, Lana Antar, Alan Benedelis, Ken Ryan, Joan Burke, Dick Stern, Susan Kalenda, Sylvia Johan, Jordan Gluck, Tony Summerstein, Sheila Bialik. Let me make sure I didn't miss anyone. Jake Fine, Larry and Tricia Tamino, Pradeep Bansal, Nancy Lieberman, Judy Horowitz. Dennis Cohen, Debbie Sepp, Steve Fitzko, Liba Rezo, Bat Leah, Bitzvi, and Holly Bennett.
Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Let me add a few more names that were buried up in the chat. Ephraim Tzvi Ben Manya, Dr. Andrew Siegel, Hannah Bat Sarah, George Panello, and Avraham Reuven Bat Tzipora. One of the things we've been doing lately is a prayer for peace, as it is needed now more than ever in this world. May the God who loves peace and teaches us to pursue it instill within us and in all of humanity the inclination to love and be compassionate, to support the vulnerable among us, to uplift the oppressed and the fallen, and to restore harmony where it has been shattered. Shelter those in danger underneath the shade of your warm embrace. Sustain those who flee for their lives with sanctuary and open arms to greet them. Quell the fears of those who tremble with angst and terror. Grant wisdom and good counsel to those who lead us, and bless them with both the courage to stand up to tyranny and brutality and the patient hearts needed to work together toward peace. When peace comes, may it not just be the lack of war and violence. May it be like the prophetic vision promised by Isaiah. Let nation not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Show us the paths of peace, O God, so that we can walk humbly together with each other and with you. Amen. We'll invite you to rise once again as the Torah is returned to the Ark, page 240, jumping then to page 256.
V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai biyad Moshe. Yisrael, Yisrael v'horaita hadu. Yisrael, Yisrael Torah כי לקח טוב נתתי לכם, תורתי אל תעזובו. עץ חיים היא למחזיקים בה, ותומכיה מיושר. דרכיה דרכי נועם, וכל נתיבותיה שלום. השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה. חדש חדש ימינו, חדש ימינו כקדם.
You can be seated. In case you think it's just me who wasn't a big fan of sacrifices, by the way, as a modern Jew, of course, I'm not such a big fan about sacrifice. There are those people in Jerusalem who are on a very religious fundamentalist path, or I would actually say maybe fundamentalism is the wrong word, radical path, that they do want to restore sacrifices in Jerusalem, as Tony reminds me a lot, and they do want to rebuild the temple for the very purpose of doing these sacrifices. You don't have to go that far in Jewish history, though, to realize that there is an aversion to sacrifice. Go to the prophets, go to Isaiah, or even go to Jeremiah, in which we're about to read, and you'll discover that the prophets essentially say, the sacrifice stuff as your main form of worship, you think that's really what God wants? You think that's what he meant by this kind of offering? You're getting it wrong. That's the message of the prophets, only a couple hundred years, less than a millennium after the Torah was written. So let's pay note to Jeremiah this morning as we read our Haftarah. Where are we going, Cantor?
I was going to actually do the back portion, but that doesn't address what you just did, so...
You don't have to.
Okay, then I'm going to start with verse 22, because I like it.
And you can also, as you can with each and every week, if you're ever wondering where our prayer book is or where our Torah reading sheets are and they're not typed into the chat as a link, go to jcoh.org/live and all of your resources will be there. So if you're joining us virtually, you don't need to take out your phone in the middle of the service to go there. You have it in front of you.
Page 703. It's Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 22. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha bנביאים טובים ורצה בדבריהם הנאמרים באמת. Baruch atah Adonai הבוחר בתורה ובמשה עבדו ובישראל עמו ובנביאי האמת והצדק. כה אמר אדוני, אל יתהלל חכם בחוכמתו, ואל יתהלל הגיבור בגבורתו, אל יתהלל עשיר באושרו, כי אם בזאת יתהלל המתהלל, השכם וידוע אותי, כי אני אדוני עושה חסד, משפט וצדקה בארץ. I, the eternal, practice kindness and justice and righteousness in the earth. For in these do I delight, saith the Eternal One. Ki ve'ele hapati neum Adonai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה, שנתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל, אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך. יתברך שמך בפי כל חי, תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה, אדוני,
ברוך שמו.
מקדש השבת.
Amen. Synagogues across the country, across the world, are celebrating, as I mentioned, the 100th anniversary of the very first bat mitzvah in the history of the Jewish people. My social media feed has been filled with rabbis and Jewish women that I know posting their bat mitzvah pictures, some which are shocking because they are much older now and you can barely recognize them, especially with those retro 1980s, 1990s, 1970s too, haircuts which have long since gone out of style. 100 years since Judith Kaplan, the daughter of the esteemed Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan, became the first bat mitzvah only 2 years after women were granted the right to vote. Rabbi Kaplan's synagogue, which he founded, by the way, the Society for the Advancement of Judaism, was aptly named as his increasingly bold and controversial ideas could no longer find home in established Jewish communities. So what do you do when you want to do things, rituals that aren't accepted by others? Oh, just start your own synagogue and you can do whatever you want. And that's pretty much what Kaplan did. Only less than a year after opening his synagogue, his daughter Judith became bat mitzvah. This bat mitzvah, it wasn't just new, different, non-traditional, and radical. Let me tell you this, people didn't like it. People did not like the idea. It wasn't just that Kaplan had a soft spot, though, for his 4 daughters and wanted to make sure that they could partake in community, but also he pioneered a groundbreaking theology, which I think was very part of the fabric of his idea that this needed to happen. It's what he called Judaism as an evolving civilization. That is, Judaism isn't really a religion alone. It's not a culture. It's something else. It's something more grand. It is an evolving civilization. I began to think earlier this week and try to connect some dots. Began to think about why, of all Torah portions, would Kaplan have picked Parshat Tzav for his daughter Judith to read on her bat mitzvah, the very first bat mitzvah ever. Parshat Tzav, a parsha that doesn't mention women at all, and only discusses the commandments for Aaron and his sons, not daughters. The parsha deals with the anointment of Aaron, the high priest, a ritual that would be passed down from generation to generation only to men. That's it. The priesthood, the Kohanim, there's no such thing at that time as a Kohenet, a female priest. 2 things I realized after a few moments, though. Number 1, we're commemorating the English date of the centennial of the first bat mitzvah. Judith's Torah portion would therefore not have been Parshat Tzav. It would have been Parshat Ki Tisa, which was read on the 16th of Adar that year. And the second thing, Judith never read from the Torah. That's right. Judith never read from the Torah. She didn't even ascend the bima. She had to stand at the foot of the bima as her father would read from Parshat Ki Tisa, and only after he had read the Torah, and only after he had read the Maftir and the Haftarah, was she able to read from her Chumash, her physical book copy of the 5 books of Moses, and the part of the Torah that she read wasn't even a part of Ki Tisa. It was I wouldn't say it was random, but it was an arbitrarily assigned parsha, that is Parshat Kedoshim, with which she read from the part of the Torah with the holiness code. She did also chant the Torah blessings before and after. Judith Kaplan reflected many years later that she was worried that her peers would judge her for what was going on. As teenagers, she noted, could be remarkably cruel, especially toward those who are nonconformist. And despite the revolutionary ritual that happened on that magical day 100 years ago, Judith Kaplan wrote, it was revolutionary, but no thunder sounded. There was no lightning. Only history was being made. Mordecai Kaplan joked that he had 4 reasons for wanting to initiate the bat mitzvah ritual. 4 reasons. The first was Judith, and the second, third, and fourth reasons were his 3 youngest daughters. As a dad of 2 girls, I happen to love that idea. And the 3 other banot mitzvah happened ritually just like their sisters Judith had. It took, in fact, until the 1950s for the SAJ, the Mordecai Kaplan's congregation, to begin calling women to read from the Torah. Think about that. Over 25 years later, the date was actually December 2nd, 1950, and it was Judith and her mother Lena who were among the 8 women who were given the first honor 5 months before Judith's eldest daughter Miriam herself became bat mitzvah. That is, women before that had not been called up to the Torah, though they could only become bat mitzvah at the bottom of the bima. Miriam, by the way, coincidentally read from the same Torah portion that her grandmother her mother Judith had read from, that is Parshat Kedoshim, which was the prescribed Torah portion of that week. We shouldn't underestimate the power the bat mitzvah ritual had on the advancement of Judaism as a whole. Rabbi Carol Balin, rabbi and also professor at Hebrew Union College in New York, a real immense historian of our time. She's writing a book right now about the bat mitzvah, and she argues that when the first woman rabbi was ordained in 1972, she had girls half her age to thank for paving the way, as it was these girls that had come into the spotlight to do the groundbreaking work of becoming banot mitzvah. I recognize that a generation before me, many young women still were denied the right of bat mitzvah. That's what Sally Presand had noted. Ironically, though, more Reform synagogues than conservative synagogues still would not allow women to become banot mitzvah at the time, and the reason being that Reform synagogues had another ritual which they had adopted, which was the ritual of confirmation, which in many ways replaced bat mitzvah, or at least gave women an alternate way to continue their Jewish studies. In the 1950s, by the end of the 1950s, a third of Reform synagogues allowed women, or allowed young girls to become banot mitzvah. There are a third of Reform synagogues, but half of conservative synagogues at the time allowed women to become banot mitzvah. It's important to note that these changes often didn't come from the top down. That is, it wasn't the rabbis who were preaching revolution from the bima in order to have by the way, when I say banot mitzvah, it's the plural of bat mitzvah in Hebrew. So it wasn't the rabbis who were preaching revolution for the banot mitzvah, and it certainly wasn't the synagogue boards who were championing at the bit for change. It was the young girls themselves who were advocating for themselves that they should be given the full rights of their male counterparts. It started with the bat mitzvah, and as Carol Balin argues, the second wave of feminism propelled women to demand that they be counted in minions, that women could sit on temple and synagogue boards, and that women eventually could be ordained as rabbis and cantors. Here at the Jewish Center in our current day, it appears that women and men share in all the roles and experiences of Jewish life. Women become bat mitzvah in a fashion no different than their male counterparts. Women sit on our board and serve in every position. Women become clergy. So have we finished our journey? And are we done progressing? Correct. No, of course, no. That is the right answer. We are not done. When we realize that our vision is in fact in reach, we move the goalpost back. Or in other words, we recognize that the world will continue to change in directions we've never anticipated, and our goal is, again, to evolve Judaism alongside the evolving world. In the words of one of my daughter's favorite songs from the movie Encanto, the song is called Tu Oruguitas, and oruguita is a caterpillar in Spanish, but here are the words from the song. We're so afraid of change in a world that never stops changing, so let the walls come down because the world will never stop changing. I happen to like that line every single time I sing it to her. And that's a scary thought for many. Just think about what would have happened if Judaism had never evolved, though. Of course, I mentioned earlier, we'd probably still be practicing sacrificial Judaism like our ancestors 2,000 years ago. We'd still be a completely patriarchal religion. We wouldn't be Zooming in our community for Shabbat. The legacy of the first bat mitzvah is one of the necessary progressions that Judaism needed to make in the modern world. You're likely asking, if that's the case, one of my favorite questions, what's next? What's next for us? Is there anywhere to go with the bar and bat mitzvah rituals? Again, the answer is, of course, yes. There is a frontier that we have yet to explore at the Jewish Center. The question many communities have been asking is, how do you shake gender out of a rite that marks either a ritual, either a Jewish girl becoming a woman or a Jewish boy becoming a man? The responses are as creative as they are diverse, and I'll give you a few things that some synagogues are beginning to practice around the world. Soren Claire Barnett, for instance, did it twice. They, which is their preferred pronoun, became bat mitzvah at 13 at a synagogue in 2011, and then bar mitzvah 5 years later during a birthright trip to Israel. Ruby Marks, who uses feminine pronouns but identifies as non-binary, became her congregation's first gender-neutral B-mitzvah, which a lot of synagogues are adopting in their language right now. Talk of evolving gender is a new area for me, as I'm sure it is a new area for many of you. It's uncomfortable for many because change and radical ideas are inherently uncomfortable. Remember, though, that those who were members of Mordechai Kaplan's Society for the Advancement of Judaism were ambivalent about a bat mitzvah at best and outright offended at worst. They were offended by Kaplan doing something that we now cannot imagine not doing 100 years later. Advancing Judaism isn't a choice. It's an uncomfortable necessity for helping Jewish life thrive in the modern world. What's next? I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure. But the one thing I do know is that new frontiers require courage. They demand that we are uncomfortable, and we know for sure, however, that they are the crucible for growth. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Let's pick up with Aleinu, page 310 in your prayer books. We'll invite you to rise once again if you are able.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים, ונתן לנו את תורתו. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
You can be seated. Our thoughts now turn to those who are no longer with us, but whose memories still shine ever brightly in our lives. As we read the names of members of our community for whom we are in a period of mourning, we'll invite you to rise if you're able so that we could acknowledge you as mourners. And of course, if there's a name that we don't read, we'll invite you to rise afterwards and share that name with the community. If you're joining us virtually, we hope that you'll use the reactions feature to raise your hand so that we too can acknowledge you as mourners. And if there's a name also that we don't read, please make sure to type that name into the chat. We would be happy to read it out loud for you. In the period of in the period of Shiva, we remember Leonard Yohei, husband of June Yohei, father of Norman Yohei. In the period of Shloshim, Frida Meisler, mother of Esther Wieder. We're in the year of mourning for David Minot, Maria Purpura, Rita Katz, John Harrison, Irving Markowitz, Estella Gass, Sharon Epstein, Jared Geldner, Sari Faith Brownstein, Boris Rubenstein, Reuben Cohen, Myrna Klein, Sina Benedek, Emily Levin, Rochelle Grossinger, Marilyn Glosserman, Francis Magan, Isabel Barnett, Sydney Silverman, Joan Tager, Joanna Rose, Edward G. Shufro, M. Gerald Cohen, Hal Etkin, Ellen Frank, Alan White, Evelyn Myron, Marvin Boris, Joanne Weeder, Peter Weinstein, Warren Davis, Robert Kay, Susan Berkman, and David Sempt. It's the art sites this week of Tzvi Yohana, Sarah Geula, Victor Goldstein, Rita Margaritan, Arthur Goldman, Harry Lauhan, Leah Nass, Clara Storper Plotkin, Helen Rivas, Abel Greenberg, Sid Zucker, and Ina Feuerstein. Did I mispronounce it? Yes, Helen Reeves Waltman. My apologies, Tony. And of course, Tony's mother. Any other names that you'd like to call out?
Carl Fink, Mara Rosier, Gloria Taradash.
Let me also add the names in the chat as well. Margie Levine, Ed Schoenfeld, and Philip Hickson. As a community, we'll rise in support of our mourners. Kaddish is on page 316.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה,
Amen.
בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחיי חון וביומי חון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירון בעלמה ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, v'chaim aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Zichronam livracha, may their memories forever be a blessing. Before we conclude this morning, and of course we'll conclude completely with a little bit of Kiddush and Motzi, but before we get to our closing tune, before we conclude, let me make a couple of brief announcements about things coming up. For starters, Torah study at 12 o'clock in the small sanctuary. Also, you can join us virtually. Coming up tomorrow morning, we have our Purim for Dummies program. It's a live program only, so you have to be with us in the sanctuary at 10:30. Join us and ventriloquist Jonathan Geffner for his show. It's going to be a lot of fun. Great for your whole family. Next week, we have also Morning Minyan, 8:15 a.m., which is, like all of our services, a hybrid model, both live and virtual. And lastly, we have a book club that we're announcing for April 21st. So you have plenty of time to read the book. The book is The Song of the Jade Lily by Christy Manning. Did I miss anything important?
I don't think so.
Passover.
Oh, is
Yeah,
that
it's
happening?
time to start thinking about Passover. We are going to be hosting a second night Seder here at the Jewish Center. You'll be receiving information about how to sign up early next week. Keep on the lookout for those emails. After 3 years of us saying, or 2 years of us saying, next year together, finally we're back. So that is going to be Saturday, April 16th. Make sure to check out the information that we send out next week. Next year for you in Jerusalem, Tony. I know that's where you normally are. What are we going to conclude with?
Ein Keloheinu, page 306. Ein Keloheinu, ein Gadolenu, ein Kemalkeinu, ein Kemoshienu, mi Eloheinu, mi Chadonenu, mi Chemalkeinu, mi Chemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Emalkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu.
Join us for Kiddush and Motzi. Want to do Vishamar?
Sure.
No, let's just do the short blessing because we're
People are
virtual.
leaving already. You want to do short? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen l'chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Can we unmute everybody in our virtual group so we can wish everyone a Shabbat shalom? Shabbat shalom, welcome back. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Al, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, Carol. Ben and Esther, we're going to meet this week. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Hi, Jerry. Shabbat shalom. Kathy and Holly. Neil. Shabbat shalom. It's good to see all of you. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay out of the raindrops. Shabbat shalom, Bernie. Yum, ba-da-da-da-da-ya-ya. Thank you. Welcome back. How was your...
Do you have with you now?
I have it in my car.
Oh,
Yes, I do. I have to just figure out
I'm
how to...
thinking I'll just have a turkey sandwich.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Then you can save yours.
because I'm thinking I might try to hightail my bike over to the bike shop.
Okay. Yeah.
And they're only open till 2 on Saturday.
And there is a little bit of leftover chicken and
Oh yeah,
rice.
but we still gonna have some dinner before we go.
Yeah, well, I could, pick up something on the way home, or you, if you want to get some salmon or something. Okay. That would be good, because I am.
We're gonna need to eat.
Yeah, right. And I'm working on Tyler too, so I won't get home. And you have leftovers, you could use.
I might save my turkey sandwich.